Hey, good people, it's your guy Lewis to the T. I am back for your fourth installment of Black History Month 2021. Today is Thursday, February 4th, 2021, and I am excited to talk to you today about historically black colleges and universities. Most of us refer to them as HBCUs, but hopefully this message will get to people who have no idea what that is, right? The whole point of Black History Month is to educate, to research, to understand, expand our knowledge, and to share that information with other people, particularly people who are not already aware, and to remind those of us who are aware of what we've truly accomplished and how far we've come. When thinking about historically black colleges and universities, the subject itself is so broad. You'll probably hear me say that a lot throughout the month because a lot of these subjects will take much more time than I'm going to spend discussing them. Hopefully this video will be the catalyst for you going out, doing a little bit of research, having a discussion with some friends, and kind of expanding that knowledge base about HBCUs. I had to do some research myself. I mean, I know the names of a lot of HBCUs, but not having attended an HBCU myself, I had to do some research. You know, who was the first HBCU? Why was it founded? Where was it founded? Some of these answers just came to me. I mean, they were logical, things like why they were founded. We know that historically black colleges and universities were founded to educate the descendants of Africans, the descendants of American slaves during a time where it was not permissible for us to be educated, a time where it was thought that that would be a bad thing for the country, that would lead to insurrection, and all of these different notions of why it was not okay for African Americans to be educated, the descendants of slaves to be educated at that time. But that did not stop people like the founders of Cheyney University. So Cheyney University is the first historically black college and university that I could find that was registered over 180 years ago in 1837. Cheyney was actually founded in Cheyney, Pennsylvania. I think the fact that it was founded in Pennsylvania is a little bit obvious to some of us, that northern states were more open and more willing to accept African Americans, the descendants of slaves, as their equal. And that wasn't common. You know, even in the North, they may not have necessarily seen black people as their equal, but they did understand that under God's rule, that under universal rule, that these were human beings. And it's important that I mention God because Cheyney was founded with a grant from a Quaker who had come to the United States and felt that it was just important to expand, you know, what he felt was God's will. And part of that for him was the founding of Cheyney University, helping to found Cheyney University and to fund it. You know, a lot of times we have ideas, but we do live in a country where money is required, financing is required to expand ideas and to reach as many people as possible. So Cheyney University, you know, created what we now have as the HBCU system. They had no idea. You know, they wanted to educate. What they ended up doing was educating, expanding, growing, and develop an entire educational system that would benefit the very people that they were targeting, but on a much broader scale. So I just wanted to make sure we started off with that foundational truth. You know, as I begin to talk about HBCUs, one of the most, I guess, famous or popular or well-known people to graduate from an HBCU has now become our Madam Vice President, and that's Kamala Harris. You know, she is literally the second most powerful person in the world. I mean, that's arguable. If you believe that the United States is the most powerful country, we're certainly the most well-known country amongst leading nations, amongst the developed world. People look to the United States when it comes to government and power and structure. So in that position, as the second most powerful person at minimum in the United States, sits not only an African American, but an African American woman who graduated from an HBCU, that being Howard University. That is a big deal. Just like we hear things like black movies don't sell, we hear things like HBCUs don't produce. They don't produce, you know, people that the broader society would deem to be worthy to lead. But that's been proven false over and over again. So sometimes we have to step back, look at why the narrative was created, how we begin to deconstruct that, and how we break those myths and those boundaries, and things like Kamala Harris becoming the first African American, the first Indian descendant, the first woman vice president. All of those barriers have now been broken, and proves that all of the myths about all the things that she is right now are not true. So we have to remember those things even as we talk about HBCUs. Some of the people that come to mind, Oprah Winfrey graduated from Tennessee State University, and then you have Thurgood Marshall, who graduated from Lincoln University, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who graduated from Morehouse. I mean, I could go on and on. Many of our best and our brightest came through our HBCU system, and the reason why it's so important to continue to support them financially, even if you didn't attend. I didn't attend historically black college university, but I recognize the importance, and therefore I contribute financially. It is important to ensure that our HBCUs are around. One of the main reasons why it's so important is because African American youth need a period in time where they can incubate, where they can be sheltered or guarded from their race being the determining factor for their success. At an HBCU, the one thing that you know that you can remove out of the equation is your race. You do not have to compete with counterparts of different races, thinking that they may outshine you or they may excel beyond you for that one reason. So not that other races are not at HBCUs, but you do recognize that merit comes first. That won't happen a lot in this lifetime in this particular country, where your race is not a factor. It's a factor at your job, it's a factor in the broader society. But if you can have that period of time at an HBCU where your work ethic and your merit and your pure brain power and drive to succeed is the only thing that counts, the sky is the limit. One of the conversations that comes up often about HBCUs is, are they still relevant? I love that question. I like when people ask that question. I used to get really irritated because it seemed so obvious to me. Why would you get rid of something that you built up? But it's more important than that. HBCUs were established because we could not be educated typically in the predominantly white institutions, but during that creation, we built something very strong. We built culture, we built heritage. For many people whose parents and grandparents graduated from HBCUs, that is a part of your lineage. That is a part of the story that you tell your children and hope that they will continue that legacy. So it's not just a building. It's a part of our culture, it's a part of our history, and they are effective. We see that they are effective. They give us a moment, a breather, a time in our youth to gather our thoughts, to focus on the strength of who we are without having to consider our race, and we have to make sure that we protect that. Please do your research, go out there, explore HBCUs, support HBCUs. If you're like me and you did not get an opportunity to attend an HBCU, still find one that you can support financially. That's all I have for today. This one is getting long. This one got longer. They'll probably continue to get longer. I'll try to be mindful of the time, but I thank you for taking the time to click the links, to share, to like, to give me feedback. I appreciate it, and I'll see you tomorrow.